The Madman! Welcome to the neutral cards in Ashes of Outland. I think these cards in particular are more interesting than the usual neutral card. It's kind of like you start off with a mass stat line and then you add something just a little bit extra to try to entice people. Okay, this isn't that bad, but it's still actually not good enough. So let's get started with the Aug Merchants. We have Ethereal Aug Merchant, Guardian Aug Merchant, and Rocket Aug Merchant. Of these three, only one of them I think has a chance of seeing play. That would be the Guardian Aug Merchant, 3 stars. All of the Aug Merchants share a common trait, which is the flexibility to deal 1 damage to a minion. So the utility is that you want to actually hit your own minions in order to give them the buff, usually. And Guardian Aug Merchant has the strongest buff, with Divine Shield being easily worth the 1 damage. I could see that played in Zoo, and then possibly in some sort of Tempo Warriors, but I expect Full Taskmaster and Inner Rage will be better than Guardian Aug Merchant. The other two, 1 star, they just don't do enough. Next up we have Infectious Spoiling. This reminds me a lot of Stubborn Gastropod. Some extra benefits is its transform over kill, so death rattles or things that happen on damage, or reborn or whatever, don't take into effect with the Infectious Spoiling. The downside is you don't completely kill their thing, and they now have an Infectious Spoiling to infect your things. Basically not impactful enough, 1 star, although very interesting. Soulbound Ash Tongue, 1 star. I basically don't think the 1 mana 1/4 stat line is that strong. We've gone a long way since Dire Mole was thought to be good. I'd say the 1 mana 1/3 stat line just isn't exciting these days. Bone Chewer Brawler, 1 star. Essentially, I think Amani Berserker is better. Yes, the Bone Chewer Brawler can get multiple buffs, but basically I think a 1-time +3 attack is better on Amani. And, in the case that you didn't like Amani Berserker, Temple Berserker is better. Imprisoned Vile Fiend, 1 star. Just don't think it's powerful enough to justify 2 mana 3/5 dormant for 2 turns. Morgue Artificer, 3 stars. I think that this card has a lot of utility potentially in spell-heavy decks, and notably Highlander Mage. There's a lot of possibilities out there, but ultimately I think this will only get picked up in a few Highlander decks. Rustsworn Initiate, 1 star. 2 mana 2/2 that death rattles into a 1/1, just not good enough. Technically a 2 mana 3/3, but really slow, and they even gave the 1/1 a little bit of bonus, spell damage +1. That's not enough for me. Blistering Rot, 1 star. Basically Echoing Ooze, except it costs 1 more mana, and that's not good enough. Yes, it can keep summoning stuff, but I don't think that's realistic. Frozen Shadow Weaver, 3 stars. So I am rating Maiev pretty highly, and I actually had a moment where I thought, wait, is Frozen Shadow Weaver better? Worse than Maiev? And I decided Maiev is better. But yeah, I could see this card in a number of Highlander decks. Overconfident Orc, 3 stars. It's no Tar Creeper, but it does kind of fill Tar Creeper's role. I think the defensive go-to cards are still going to be Bone Wraith and Kartut Defender, especially for the Highlander decks, but maybe if things get aggressive enough, you might slide Overconfident Orc as another one of those early game taunts. Teron Gor Fiend, 2 stars. A really interesting effect, and once they print more Death Rattle minions, Teron Gor Fiend's effect could actually be really strong. I think that there is some rumblings of a potential Hunter Death Rattle deck, but I don't think that's going to be nearly strong enough right now. Terror Guard Escapee, 1 star. Some very small chance that this makes it an Embiggen Druid, because when you pull it out of your deck, it is pretty big. But overall, that's pretty much all you want to do with it. You want to cheat it out, or you want to play it when your opponent has too many minions, or you want to play it when you can deal 1 damage to everything really easily, but meh. Burrowing Scorpid, 3 stars. Pretty efficient, and just efficient enough to get me excited enough to maybe put it into some Highlander decks, and into Stealth Rogue. If you do manage to kill a target with 2 damage, 5/2 Stealth line alongside that Battle Cry, like that's just good enough to get pushed into, okay, I would seriously consider playing this. Disguised Wanderer, 1 star. When you add up the stat line on this, it is 13 stats on a 4 mana card, which is on average like a 6/7. And that's pretty good for 4 mana, but that's the problem with averages, right? A 9/1 is really, really vulnerable. Felfin Navigator, 3 stars. That's a really good Murloc card, and I actually think that Murloc Shaman will be a tier 3 deck, which will include Felfin Navigator, so fits right into that deck. Magtheridon, 5 stars. If you saw my top 10 list, Magtheridon got a special mention there. Most people are thinking Magtheridon is one of the weakest cards in the set, but I disagree, and I think control decks will use Magtheridon well, kind of like a Doomsayer card. They'll play it early, and then, oh no, you can't commit too much on the board, otherwise the warders will get destroyed, or just in combination with deal 3 damage. I don't know why so many people are dormant on Magtheridon here. I see it in Control Warlock, I see it in Control Warrior, I see it even in Control Priest maybe. Just all the control decks, you gotta think about, can I put Magtheridon in, I think. Maiev Shadow Song, 5 stars. That is basically a 4-mana 4/3 that freezes a minion for 2 turns, and I think that just might be good enough to include in most Highlander decks. Certainly the more tempo-oriented ones. In a lot of aggressive decks, you'll use the Maiev as kind of a sap, remove a taunt for just enough to kill them. I think it's great. She's great. Replicatotron, 1 star. It's a bit too slow, it's individually weak. You require having small cards alongside it. Just not strong enough, what can I say? Rust-Sworn Cultist, 1 star. Granted, if you do have a wide board, it's quite efficient. It's kind of like Soul of the Murloc attached to a 2-mana 3/3. But, I mean, it doesn't summon Murlocs, which is a problem. Allure, 1 star. Way too slow, it's 5-mana 7/3, which death rattles into a 0/3. Weakest legendary in this set. And possibly the weakest card in this set. Rust-Sworn Raider, 1 star. I was basically thinking, do I want a 1/4 taunt that has Battle Cry deal 5 damage? And the answer is no. Waste Warden, 1 star. 5-mana 3/3 deal 3 damage just isn't strong enough, and I don't think that having a bunch of minions is good enough. Dragon Ball Skystalker, 2 stars. I think that this better than Cairn card with a dragon tag is just good enough to think about running in many Highlander decks that use dragons without actually being good enough to be included in that deck. Just a bit too slow, I guess. Kael'thas Sunstrider, 3 stars. There are a number of decks out there that could use Kael'thas to interesting combos, but I think all of those will be tier 3 or lower. Mainly a meme fun card, I think. Didn't even break anything when it was around for a very small amount of time with the previous 3 sets. Scavenging Shavara, 2 stars. Reminds me a lot of Dynomatic, which made me want to give it more stars, but does deal damage to your own things when you actually have other minions on the board that, you know, Dynomatic didn't hit your mechs. But I'd say she is a consideration for any control deck, because that is a powerful effect if you consistently have no other minions. Bonesure Vanguard, 1 star. 7-mana 4/10, taunt, no thanks. Supreme Abyssal, 1 star. You're too slow. And Scrapyard Colossus, 2 stars. I think this is going to be the card that you want to cheat out, or ramp to, but I don't think Ramp Druid will be playing this. I don't think Embiggen Druid will be playing this, and I don't think there's going to be a deck in this meta that just wants to cheat out stuff. Again, there's a lot of interesting death rattle effects. Like each time I see this death rattle on Scrapyard Colossus or Dragon Ball Skystalker, I'm like, is this gonna work? Is there gonna be a death rattle deck? I think there's not quite enough synergy yet. But an interesting card, and that is 14/14 worth of fast defensive stats. So all in all, the neutral cards, basically it's Maiev. And then if you're really creative like me, Magtheridon is pretty solid. Everything else is kind of a maybe, and none of the cards are actually that weak other than Allure. They're all designed in such a way that I wouldn't think that you would be making a major mistake if you ran any of the cards in a deck that justified it, which is good design for neutral. It's meant to not just be an auto-include in any deck. I don't even think Maiev is an auto-include in every deck. So, that's it, and I'm looking forward to seeing all these cards in action.